Good evening. This is the day that the Lord hath made, and we ought to rejoice and be glad in it. We are so grateful that you have joined us here at the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, located in Herndon, Virginia, for the beginning of our summer series. Our summer series this year is dealing with life in the midst of a pandemic. And so tonight we want to begin in the first section of this series with dealing with your finances in the midst of a pandemic. It's our prayer that something will be said or done on tonight that will bless your spirit in a mighty, mighty way. We're asking that you would please share this video with your friends, because we just believe here at the Mount Pleasant Church that this is something that is important for all of our lives. We're going to open up tonight with a moment of prayer. Oh, gracious God, we thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for your grace and your mercy. We pray, oh God, as we begin this panel discussion, oh God, on dealing with finances in the midst of a pandemic, that you would have thine own way. We thank you for our guests who have joined us on tonight. We pray, oh God, that you would just move like only you can, and we'll be ever mindful to give you all the praise and the glory. As I said, once again, we are so thankful that you have come to join us on tonight in the first of our series. Joining us tonight, we have with us Joshua Best, who is a 27-year-old financial planner with New York Life. Of course, he's a member of the Mount Pleasant Church. We have Sister Maria Kersey, who is a financial advisor with Northwest Mutual. And we have Brother Anthony Hunter, who is the CEO of PYF Global, who worked years with Financial Crisis Prevention Center. We are so grateful that they have come out on tonight. As you can see, we are social distancing. We have our mask on and everything like that. So we are just grateful that they have come out to be with us on tonight. I want to begin just quickly in talking about finances in the midst of a pandemic. It's interesting that when you look at the Bible, Jesus offers more wisdom and it has more to say about money than any other subject besides the kingdom of God. Now, he says in Matthew 6, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." In other words, Jesus is saying that there is a danger in putting everything in earthly investments. And listen, we're finding that out all right now with the unemployment rate the way it is, an unstable stock market. You can't put everything in your life into your finances. But what I do know is it's important to make sure that you prepare yourself for things like what we are going through. Well, why is money so important? It's important because in a real sense, it reveals who we are. If you look at the end of that Matthew, the 6th chapter, Jesus says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." I need to repeat that again. He says in Matthew 6, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And so the question I have tonight is, where is your heart when it comes to finances? Especially during what we are dealing with, we've got to make sure that our hearts are in the right places. 1 Timothy 6:17 says, "Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth." Oh, I wish I had time really to deal with that. Not to be so arrogant. That's one of the things that America is dealing with right now, is just our arrogance. And I just believe that God, who is a provider, will lead us and guide us in the right direction. If we would just stay humble, if we would do those things that are pleasing in his sight. I was talking to a good friend who works on Wall Street, and he was saying, he was saying to me, he said, there's three things when it comes to finances that the church ought to be talking about right now. He said, first of all, he said, make sure that you continue to focus on spirituality. That even when you talk about finances, that you make sure that people understand that even when it comes to finances, spirituality has to be a part of that decision. John 15 says, remain in me and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Even when it comes to our finances, we've got to make sure that our decisions and the things that we're doing are being guided by the Spirit. But he said, not only do you have to make spiritual decisions, but he said, during times like this, you got to make sound decisions. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. So many people during moments like this, during storms, during pandemics, make unsound decisions, make unwise decisions that really mess them up long term. They make decisions that they think are the best for right now, but the truth is they are unsound decisions. The reason I called them was I was panicking. I was looking at the stock market and how it was going down, and I wanted to sell, get out. And he was like, listen, be sound. Don't be so quick to move. He said, think about this. It's going to bounce back. You're in it for the long run. You've got to make sound decisions. Go to God in prayer. Talk to the Lord about it. But don't make decisions based on emotion. But he said, make sound decisions. The last thing he told me was not only be spiritual, not only be sound, but he said, make sure you save. And Proverbs 21:20 says, the wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. So many people, we know that a majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And so many people, when the country shut down, after about 3 weeks, people began to lose their minds really financially because many had just not had any money saved up. And you look and people rush back to work, people rush to do this and rush to do that. And one of the main reasons was because they were not prepared. Mm-hmm. They were not prepared for a financial storm. And so he said, listen, man, he said, just be patient. Make sure you're spiritual. Make sure you make sound decisions. And every opportunity you get, put some money aside to save. And he said, if you do those things, even in the midst of a pandemic, you'll be okay. And so once again, I want to thank our guests for joining us tonight. We're going to ask, first of all, Brother Anthony Hunter, just to talk for a few moments about finances in the midst of a pandemic.
I think, first of all, you have to be mentally sound. I do agree with the part about the Bible. You got to be spiritually fit. You got to be physically fit. Then you concentrate on your finances. If you don't have a vision of what you want your future to look like, it'll never happen. I've been in this industry about 30 years, and I've seen all types of craziness. But I remember a small book that I read called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's got a bunch of principles in it. If you look at, you're actually right. If you look at the Bible, everything is in there. You gotta find it. But one trick that I found is that I can if I have something on my mind, I can lay the Bible down. It'll open up to that passage. If you're having a hard time saving money, look at your relationships. How are you dealing with people? Do you have a grudge with anybody? I'm going to tell you a small personal story that I had. I'm on my second marriage. My first marriage, gentleman my wife had an issue. She did what she did, right? And I held this grudge against her and the individual. And I didn't believe in divorce, but I didn't know anything about it. But I said, what other reason what recourse do I have in terms of separating myself from the situation? And the first thing that came to mind was forgiveness. And this was more than 20 years ago. I actually forgave, number one, myself. I forgave my spouse, who was actually one of my best friends at this point, my ex-spouse, and I forgave the individual. And what happened with me that very same year, it was the first year I made 6 figures in this business. And I haven't looked back. So I say, there's something to this forgiveness thing. If you're struggling with money right now, there's something else in your background that's holding you back. If you have an issue with not saving money, there's reason behind that. We do everything off of emotion, off of the feeling that it brings us. So you want to paint yourself a picture of your vision in the future. Do you see yourself wealthy? Do you see yourself poor? However you picture it, that's exactly what's going to happen. One thing I noticed during this pandemic, there was a run on 2 things: food and toilet paper. I said, I guarantee these folks are not working out. Right? If you want to have a sound mind, you need a sound body. With a sound body, everything else falls into place. Those 4 things I just mentioned: mental, spiritual, physical, financial. I'm a runner. I've been running for 50-some years. I run marathons at this point. But I realize when I'm out running, I have conversations with God. So when this pandemic hit, I said, well, God got his hand on this thing. There's no need to panic, right? Because we've seen this before. Every election, there's always a pandemic. You can go back and do the research. So why would I do what the people did in the past? Why don't I do something different? Why don't I keep my eye on my dream and my goal? Why don't I listen to what God asked me to do, which is to help people feed his sheep, right? And concentrate on that. And something came to me this morning. It's kind of interesting. It's probably God talking to me. If you want to increase your net worth, increase the relationship with your network. Help the people in your network. People that you already know. Help them out, right? You want a nice house? Help somebody else get a house. You want a nice car? Help somebody else get a nice car. Whatever you want is in somebody else. So your job is to help them get there. And so when you look at this situation with the pandemic, you're not saving money. What does that look like in the future? There are people that never save a dime. I have clients that won't save a dime. And so as you look at what's going on right now, number one, I have a short formula. It's very, very simple. And you can apply it to pretty much anything. But you want to save your money, it's certain things you want to do. I say R, I'm going to just get the initials first. R, I, S, and T. R is responsibilities, right? So 70% of your income is going to take care of your responsibilities, right? Whatever your responsibilities are. Now, help with some of those. You know, food, clothing, shelter is your responsibility. Upkeep, family, those sorts of things. But also entertainment is part of your responsibility. So out of that 70% of the money that you make, include your entertainment, okay? The other 10% is investing. If you're going to live a long time, you're going to need a lot of money. So start putting something away. 10%, just put it away. 10% of everything you own is yours, regardless of how you got it, right? It's yours. Put it away, because you're going to need it later on when you retire, right? Then we have S. S stands for savings, right? So you're gonna take care of responsibilities. You're gonna invest some money. You're gonna take 10% of money and just save it. Save it for what reason? For whatever. You're not saving up to buy something, right? You're saving up for the future you that you're becoming. You're saving up for that future generation, right? For your children's children, okay? R-I-S, and then we have T. And you can take this anywhere you want it. I'm in church, so tithe, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tell you a little trick about.
Amen.
I'm gonna tell you a little trick about tithing.
Amen.
And I'm gonna talk to those that don't go to church and those that don't believe in tithing. I'm gonna tell you the situation I had with tithing, because I was one of those, right? I said, well, God doesn't need money. He doesn't need this. He doesn't need that. Yeah, but other people do. So if you don't want to tithe in the church, tithe can be giving somebody else 10% of your income. Okay? Could be a stranger on the street. Could be a bum, right? But give it away. Could be a charity. I'll say give it to a church, right? But tithing is 10% of money. It's not yours. It's for somebody else to grow, right? Give it away. Now what's going to happen? You're going to maintain that system. You got 70%. 10, 10, and 10. Well, as you start paying down your responsibilities and your bills, that 70% turns into 60%. Right? Now you got extra 10%. What are you going to do with it? You got $3 to put it in there, right? You can put it in the investment. You can put it in your savings, or you can tithe it. Let me tell you a trick about tithing. You can't outgive God.
Amen.
All right? You can try, and it's a lot of fun. It's really fun. Because when you do that, you start making more money. You say, okay, now I got 60, I got this 10, 10, 10, and this extra 10. Okay, I'm going to put it over here and see what happens. When I did that, my income went up. And then my 60% turned into 50%. Because we don't want to be in debt. Right? Oh, no, man. Sound familiar? So now you got 50% over here. You got 10, 10, and you put this other 10 on here. You got 20. Now you got this extra 10. Where are you going to put it? If it works the first time, do it again. Give it away. If you look at all the philanthropists, they give away their wealth. And what happens? They create wealth, but they get it coming back. So it's a good thing to do. Try to outgive God. Put that money in that tithe bucket. Give that money to that charity. Give that money to the person on the street. Don't worry about what they do with it. That's not your business. But give it away, because it's going to come back. My mentor, Mr. Charles Scott, he gives away tons of money. He's a multimillionaire. And I watched him give away tons of money, and I watched tons come back in. And I said, you know what? There's something to this. It's a godly principle. I can't give it to you. I know what it is. Pastor, you might be able to find it. It's in the book. It is. I'm telling you, it's in the book.
You reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow.
And the good thing about that,
biblical principle.
It's going to come back multiplied.
Yeah.
It's going to come back multiplied. And so, even what I'm doing here, this is probably the first time I've ever done publicly like this, speaking. I do like lunch and learns around the area, but I know who pays me. And that's what's important. It's not the man, it's not the woman. Right? So you do what God wants you to do, and it's gonna come back multiplied. Don't worry about it. In terms of the pandemic, take care of your health. That's utmost. Because the physical health will trigger the mental health. It's gonna open up that communication with God. When I go running, I mean, I have serious conversations. I may do a 20-mile run. I'm having serious conversations. And it's not about can I finish, it's like, what do you want me to do now? What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? So maintain that discipline. Put up a vision board of what you want to see. If it's a house, a home, whatever it is, put those things in front of you and look at it every night before you go to bed. and just thank God for the deliverance. Don't ask him for anything. He's already given it to you. Thank him and do the work. And that's pretty much it.
Amen. Thank you so much for that, Brother Hunter. We want to remind you that we will have a question period at the end. And so if you do have questions, if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, if you could just please write the question in the box and we'll put all the questions to the side and we'll open it up for questions. We have some good stuff here tonight, and so we want you to ask your questions, so please feel free to ask the questions. We're now going to go to Josh Best, who's going to talk to us a few moments about what he feels is important as far as finances in the midst of this pandemic.
Thank you. So my thought process during the pandemic is in dealing with investments, have less emotion. And then in dealing with personal, have a plan. So less emotion was already covered. So personal, in Genesis chapter 41, Joseph had been brought to Potiphar's house, and Pharaoh had a dream. Pharaoh has this dream. He sees 7 sheaves of wheat and 7 sheaves of wheat coming up. One's beautiful and healthy, the other's torn down and destroyed. And the one that's destroyed means what? A famine's coming. Mm-hmm. So Joseph goes and interprets this dream to Pharaoh. One saying there's a famine, the other said there was going to be 7 years of plenty. So what did Joseph do? He created a plan. And with that plan, he said, all right, during these 7 years, we have so much, let's put something away. Mm-hmm. So idea being saving. Saving, investing, whatever you do that best fits your situation, that allows you to put something away. Mm-hmm. And then, so he put it away. Well, after those 7 years, wow, there was 7 years of famine. Egypt didn't run out of food. Egypt had more than enough food that Joseph's brothers that sold him into slavery had to come find him and get some food from him. So that helped solve a problem and caused forgiveness. Mm-hmm. So if you look at that scenario, if you walk into any situation and you have a true plan of what you want to accomplish, mm-hmm. it can be done. Then after you have the plan, have discipline enough to sit there and walk through it. You can't waver any bit. You said you're going to do this, do this. You said you're not going to do that, don't do it. Don't start walking on and off the path that you're trying to walk on. And the very moment you do that, that's when you start losing. And so yeah, my main ideas are have less emotion involved when you're investing. Because the moment you have emotion involved with investing is when everything goes haywire. You become scared, you become, oh my God, you get the initial shock factor. Mm-hmm. That initial shock factor you have to bring down and you have to breathe. Just sit there, breathe. No, like something bad happens, breathe. Then respond and react. So after you have the chance to breathe, respond, and react, then you go back to that same plan that you already created and you just keep walking down it. And if you want to put more in, put more in. If you want to take a little out, you can. It's not the best idea. Why? Because you're going to lose money. You're going to lose in the end. The moment you take something out while it's at the bottom, you have no room to grow. You can't go anywhere. You took it out. So 2 things, have less emotion with investments and have a true plan. And you can be prosperous and walk through any downturn, downtime, just like Joseph was able to do in Egypt. He got them through it. You can get through it too, as long as you do those 2 true things.
Okay. All right. Sister Kersey, how about you? What do you think is important for us financially in the midst of this pandemic?
First of all, I think it's important that you seek the Lord first. So in the Bible, it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all else is going to fall into place. So I think it's real important that you seek God first. Secondly, you have to have a plan in place, and you need to stick to the plan. if you have 30 years before you're going to retire and the market falls, you got 30 years. You got a plan in place. You just stay right there, and it's going to come back. It's going to fall right back into place. So I would say first, seek God. Secondly, again, like the way Joshua said, don't be emotional. Thirdly, it's real important, prior to a pandemic, you really have to have savings in place so that if you are in a position where you lose your job or you lose your income, you still have means to do. So for example, prior to the pandemic, many people in this area work for the government. So you had furloughs that was happening last year around, I don't know if that was this time last year or when it was. You had the furlough. So there was a period of time where people didn't have income. What we really think is important is that you have money set aside for a rainy day. So you want to be sure to put away, just like the way we tithe and we give 10% to the church, you really should be putting 10% away for yourself, so that when a rainy day comes, you have this money that you can rely upon in emergencies and still do what you need to do. So I think it's just very important that you plan and stick to the plan. It's real important to have savings for emergencies. We all should have 3 to 6 months worth of our expenses tucked away in accessible savings in the event that you lose your job. Unemployment is there, but it's going to take a minute for unemployment to kick in. So you need to have something in place so that you can still do the things that you need to do. So I would say, A, seek God first. B, have a plan and stick to that plan. C, make sure you have savings. It's not cool to spend everything that you have. I work with people daily, and a lot of times I'll say, well, what's your savings philosophy? And they'll say, as I get it, I spend it. Well, that's not really God. That's not of God. You have to put something away, so that you have something for the future. So I would encourage everyone to be wise with which you have. Because it's a pandemic going on, we're not going out the way we used to go out. We're not, I know we all Christians, but many of us go to happy hour. We're not going to happy hour. So because you're not going to happy hour and you're not going out to eat and all of that, you really should have a little extra in terms of savings. So I just encourage everyone to be wise with what you have and put that money away in savings.
So you said, tell me how, you said everyone should have, how much do you recommend?
3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months.
In this area, I'm going to say 6 months worth of your expenses should be in liquid savings.
6 months, so to just kind of explain that a little bit. 6 months of liquid spending in your savings. Tell me exactly what that means to you.
So if your mortgage is $1,500 and your car note is $500, that's $2,000. And if you're spending $300 on food, we got $2,300. You got cable, electric, gas, utilities. Let's just say that's another $400-500. So now we got $3,000. Say we got $3,000 in expenses every month for you to live. 3 times 6 is 18. We need to have $18,000 socked away somewhere, and that's a lot of money. But we need to have 9 at a minimum, just so that if something happens, if I lost my job today, I want to still be able to pay that car note. I need to still be able to eat. I need to still be able to pay that mortgage. So you really need to have it. And many of you will say, well, I have it in retirement. That's not the answer.
I was just about to ask you about that.
If you have it in retirement and you go to pull it out and you're not 59 and a half, you got to pay taxes, okay? 20% federal, 4% for the state of Virginia, 7.75 for the state of Maryland. Then there's a 10% penalty for early withdrawal. So really, you're pulling out this money from your retirement. You're paying the government back like 35, 40%. It's not worth it to pull it from your retirement. Plus, you got to still retire. You got to still live in retirement. So your retirement is not really the answer. The answer is to have money in real savings, in a CD or in a savings account. You don't want to have your emergency money sitting in a mutual fund investment unless it's a money market. Because that mutual fund, we talked about the market falling, that mutual fund is going to decline whenever the economy is bad. So you think you got $50,000 in the bank. Well, now it's $30,000 because the market fell. That's not a good look. So you want to make sure you have that 3 to 6 months worth sitting in just real cash.
Got you. Now, Brother Hunter, you talked about, and I've heard about that, you talked about the 70, 10, 10, 10. So say somebody is at a point where say, well, when I look at what I make and I look at I think the R was responsibilities, and my responsibilities are more than 70%. How do we begin to get people there to where, if on a month-to-month basis, their responsibilities are 90 to 95% of what they make, how do we get people to that 70%?
Well, I like that question. It's actually very easy. You don't have that many responsibilities. A lot of that stuff that people perceive, and I've had clients like this. A lot of these expenses they think they have is something extra that they're doing. If you don't just apply those principles, I mean, they're going to work. That stuff came out of the Bible. I told you I can't tell you exactly where it is, but that's where I got it from. But a person that says their expenses are keep going up, what are you doing? You're overdoing something. There's something in it that you're not taking account for. Because even if you're paying rent, your rent doesn't go up every month. Well, it shouldn't, right? So somewhere in that scenario, you're overspending. You have some things in there that aren't responsibilities, right? And so that's why you can't apply these things to the category, because it's you are the problem. You see, because your money is not, your expenses don't just go up. They don't automatically go up. What you got to do is look at what you're spending your money on. Where's that money going? I mean, nobody has 90%. It's not even a homeless person. I mean, that's how ridiculous that statement is. You have to, you got to grab yourself by the neck. That's the hard way to say it, but you got to force yourself to do it, because nobody's going to do it for you. It's very important to have more than one stream of income, right? I'm in a position right now where I don't have to work. It's a great place to be. But a lot of people that I know do have to work. So what I try to do is try to get them to where I am, right? So if your expenses are that high, start your home-based business and take advantage of the tax code. It's very simple. Okay, you got 90%, everything's 90%, okay. Now you got a business, now you can start writing these things off. Now the money's coming back into your pocket. Now you can apply that principle that I'm trying to put across. Because now I've taken away your excuse. Start your business and build a residual income. Show somebody else how to do it and build your network. And help your network build their network. Now you got passive income. You still got your regular employment, but now you have passive income. So when the next pandemic hits, it's going to hit, you're ready. Because your money's already working for you. An investment in your business, an investment in you is an investment. 10% of that money can go to a business, right? That'll pay you a residual income. Pay yourself first is a tremendous concept. And we have a company called Pay Yourself First. And what do? Show people how to lower their cost of living, lower their taxable income, and put their money into their retirement. You help somebody else do that, and you start making money. Now you got a stream of income that comes in, whether you work or not. You're not going to stop doing what you're doing, but now you have this other stream of income coming in. Okay? So I just eliminated that excuse, right? Because you got a home-based business. On the internet, there's a ton of them. You can go to my website, and I can hook you up, right? But you got to have another source of income. Because the job is not going to pay you nothing. They're not going to look out for you. I've been in business for 30 years. I know. I mean, got a degree and all that. Went through the whole thing. Get a good job, get a good education. Right? Well, get a good education, get a good job. Didn't work. It doesn't work for most of us. Right? Start your business. Now, what kind of business do I start? Something that's easy. Don't take a whole lot of time. Because you still want to have your enjoyment. Right? An online business where it's going to pay you a monthly income is what you want to do. Something that's simple, something that's easy, right? Nobody wants to be sold, but everybody wants services. Offer services, offer benefits, right?
So is a pandemic a good time, to start a business?
My income has gone up. I'm in the insurance business, but my income has gone up. Not because of death claims and all that, but people are calling for insurance. People calling for opportunity. People calling to want to get into the business. Because they watch me. People see me struggle. I'm from D.C. People see me struggle. I've been homeless, right? Divorce and all that stuff. I've been all of that. But guess what I had?
Cool.
Same as everybody else has.
And
Right.
and that's so important, having God even in the midst. Sometimes I think we act like, well, that's God's stuff over here, but this stuff over here, like my finances and my family, I'm gonna leave God out of that and let God handle this other stuff. But it's so important, even in our finances, to understand how important God is in every aspect of our finances. Even in the book of Malachi, God said, He said, try me.
Yep.
Just try me. If you would give me a try, I will open up the windows of heaven and I will pour you out a blessing.
Right.
And that's what God is, I think, even saying to us today. He's saying, just try me. Allow me not just in the tithing, not just in the giving, but make me a part of your financial plan. Make me a part of what you're doing with your finances, and I'm going to bless you so much that you're not even going to have room to keep everything.
That's right.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Now, Josh, you talked about having a plan. Say somebody is in a position where they say, okay, I want to create a plan. I want to get my finances in order. I want to create a plan. What do you say? How do you go about doing that?
So my very first step is get to know them. Because once you understand who they are and how they move, then you can tailor fit it for themselves. So get to know them first, and then you got to cover the basics. First basic being you got to cover the workhorse. You got to buy life insurance so that yourself is covered just in case something were to happen. And at the minimum, you can you can have a nice funeral and go home, After that, then you start building on the investment sides. You start taking care of, all right, you got retirement protection, long-term care, whatever you want to call it. And then from there, then you start building. You build with your investment platform. You base that off of either how risk tolerant you are. So you can make money market, mutual fund, or you can go straight into the market and buy stocks based off of that. Then from there, I go up one more level, then start deciding, all right, what do we want to do, charitable or legacy? If we start with charitable first, we start picking out organizations, places, and things to give to. Because as Mr. Hunter was saying, give freely. If you give freely, it does come back to you. given it will be given to you, unto you, pressed down, shaken together. That does happen, no matter how you look at it. It's gonna happen. And then from there, you figure out the legacy. Do I want to give to families? Do I want to give to a church? Do I want to give to an organization? Because what do I want my name to be? Do I want to create a foundation for myself? Like, who do I want to be? Who do I want them to say I was? Who do I want to be remembered as at the very end? So you got to build the house from the foundation first, and then you can get to the roof. You can't just go, oh yeah, I'm going to start doing this giving out here. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. You have to build a
You got to
foundation
have a plan.
first.
You got to work your plan.
Yes.
Yeah. We live in a world where what do you all, what do you all think about this? We live in a day when people have not prepared. Even in what we're at, I think 128,000 deaths because of the coronavirus, and people are dying, and people have to come together and have a GoFundMe, and they got to come. How can we get out of that mentality? Anybody? How can we get out of that mentality?
I'll jump on it first and then let's go around. So we need to stop looking as death as a taboo. We look at it as something we're so afraid of. Yeah, it's not something anyone wants to do any day of the week, but don't be afraid. It's something that has to happen. So prepare for it happening. Don't just, I got time. You don't know that. Like, you could walk across the street one day and just, boom, there's a bus. That was it. So it needs to stop being taboo. It's predominantly in our community too. It's unfortunate. We're so underrepresented in insurance for ourselves. It's absurd. We're chasing generational wealth. We want to create generational wealth. That's the goal. Well, buy some insurance on yourself. That's a guaranteed leg up for your family. It starts the next pattern.
And I guess we got to get out of, and I guess this is why this is, to me, is so important, because, I found that, many of our generations before, they'd have the man who'd come by the house and you'd give him $1 and people thought they had this one policy. They thought they had one thing, but in reality, they didn't really even have enough to cover, a funeral. How can we get people more, and not just even about, insurance, and that's a part of it, but how can we get more people educated about finances? You have your own company, you're a financial advisor, you work for New York Life. What can we do to get more people? As he said, not only is death taboo, but even really in the church, you start talking about money and people get all, you're in my personal business and I don't want to talk about that, and then you think people have it all together, and then something happens and that same family who you thought had it all together is the same family struggling around trying to get money to put together for. What can we do to educate our community more so when, I was reading an article and they were saying that one of the reasons that the numbers for African Americans were so high with the coronavirus was because so many of us take public transportation. And at the beginning, that was one of the, hot spots. And it just seems like we are, with a lot of these issues, we are behind. What can we do to better educate our communities?
Well, really, what we're doing today is a start. I think that having honest discussions with the church, having presentations as financial advisors, we're always willing to go out and speak to the community or speak to your group. So if you have a group, or we got women's ministry and men's ministries here in the church, if anyone wants to have a dialogue like this, we should we're available, and we should take advantage of those resources that are in the church that are willing to educate you, because I don't think we do a good job, and this is the black, white, it's the community at large. We don't do a good job of teaching finances as children. You know, really, that's where it should start. We should, in the Girl Scouts, we need to be talking about putting that money away.
That's like my,
You
yeah,
know,
definitely.
and learning about investing versus savings. We need to be learning that. So I would say we can start just by having presentations and having dialogues. And now you guys know who we are in the church. Reach out. I'm always reaching out to different ones. Y'all don't take my call, but reach out. You can reach out. I'm on the realm. I'm willing to help you get there. You asked a question earlier about what's the first step in creating a plan? I would say most of us don't keep a budget. For 1 month, just write down everything you're spending. And I think that then that's going to really open up some doors for you, because you'll see that you are spending money on things that you don't necessarily have to be spending money on. You're not spending 90% of your money. That's not happening. But you're doing some things. I used to get my nails done. I'm going to start there. I used to get my nails done every other week. Well, of course, I was getting my nails done. I was getting my toes done. I was getting my eyebrows waxed. It was like $75 every other week. Well, you know what I could do with $75 every other week? So, these are the things. If you're writing down what you're doing, I say start with a budget. If you're writing down what you're doing, you're bound to find money that you can then allocate to savings or to somewhere else.
Mr. Hunter?
I would say if you have kids, look at your kids. I mean, I'm fortunate to have a 5-year-old, like starting all over, right?
Huh.
And what kind of future do you see for your kids? I mean, life insurance is not for you, right? If you are a Christian, if you do believe what God says, he talks about leaving an inheritance to your children's children. How are you going to do that if you have a $5,000 policy or nothing enough to bury you, or you have nothing? It's nobody's responsibility to bury you. Why would you leave that burden on somebody else? I personally believe that everybody should have $1 million policy. Right? If you don't have that much money, get a term, right? And convert it later on. But get $1 million policy. You want to talk about legacy? I mean, look at the number of people that have died over the past couple of years. Right? Just imagine if every single person that died had $1 million policy. How would our situation change?
My goodness.
I mean, just think about that for a minute. Even if they had a $50,000 policy, and you had 100 people that got killed, what kind of wealth transfer is that right there? It's very simple. I got to be nice. Keep your eyes off yourself. Put your eyes on somebody else.
That's true.
I like that. Keep your eyes off yourself
Yeah.
and put your eyes on somebody else.
It's not about you.
It's not about you.
It's about what God put you down on this earth for. He's going to give you everything you want, but you got to be obedient. Right? And it doesn't necessarily mean going to church, but you got to follow his word. I mean, we're in the condition that we are today. I think a lot of it has to do with outside forces, but we allow a lot of things to happen by just not listening to God. When somebody said they got your back, what do? You kind of relax, don't you? Well, we don't believe God has our back. We don't believe it. And that's a big problem. But what can we do? One at a time. Keep having these sessions. Keep talking to people. Ask questions. I have people right now calling me, asking me all kinds of questions that they should already know the answers to. But I can't fault them for not knowing. They haven't been exposed.
Right.
I would say have more sessions like these, and I know how some churches work. You network with other churches, I would imagine. Every month, all the churches you network with get together and have these sessions, and have people come in and have people just ask questions. What do I do with my money? I'm retiring. What do I do with that money? How much life insurance do I really need? Right? How do I want things to look when I retire? You got to ask these questions now. I have a 5-year-old who has a stock portfolio. And my goal is to get her to a couple million shares before she's 15, which I can probably do that. Right?
Right.
And I'm working with my 2 other older daughters to do the exact same thing. That's part of leaving a legacy. And the money that I make, I can't take it with me. It's just not going.
Yeah.
But I can make as much as I can to put as big of a dent in that thing that God asked me to do in terms of leaving that inheritance. You know, for my granddaughter's daughter.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's so important. You talk about something, you know, even, you know, my son is going to be a senior in high school. And so last year he took a basically a stocks class. And so he's interested. He came to me recently, and one of the things that I've been doing, you know, I have a portfolio of, you know, I have retirement, some other stuff. But one of the things I've been doing during the pandemic is I've been doing some personal trading. So I opened up a Fidelity account, and you know, and I've been kind of doing my own personal little thing, and it's probably caused me more headache than anything because, you know, it's going up and down. But he came to me and he said, you know, Daddy, would you open up me an account? I would like to do some. And I just thought, I said, you know, I didn't get that when I was, you know, when I was in high school. And it's got to be, I think you said something, you know, we've got to have generational change. You know, you talked about generational wealth, and we've got to begin to change. We've got to be willing, because you know what I think we've learned in America is that nobody's going to do it for us.
Right.
We've got to do it for ourselves. That, you know, the reality is we live, you know, in a place where if we are expecting somebody else to do for us, we're going to be waiting a long time. But there are some things that we can do on our own. There are some generational things that we can begin to change on our own. Somebody mentioned we do, you know, one of the things that this church has been good at is, and I think it's a start for anybody who wants to begin to change their finances, we have a class called Crown Financial that we teach here at the church. And so I think for anybody who, you know, wants to change, I think this at the very beginning, that's a good start, is to take that Crown Financial class and don't stop there, but begin to build up on your, you know, what you're doing. We do have a couple of questions. First of all, Mr. Hunter, somebody asked about, you mentioned your website.
Okay.
So if you could give your website, and we'll try to get that listed on there. Okay. So do you have it now?
It's PYF Global.
PYF Global. At
No, that's the website.
Oh, okay, PYF Global. Okay, so for those who asked the question, it's PYF Global. You can look at it online. It's PYF Global, and that's Mr. Hunter's website. Of course, we know that Sister Kersey and Brother Bess are members of our church who are readily available. Now, somebody, and anybody can answer this, somebody asked about what do you think, and this goes back to the generational thing, what do you think about trust funds? Are they safe, and is it a good idea?
Yes.
They're safe, they're a good idea, but it depends on how you set it up. And I've been looking into that myself. I don't know a lot about that, so I'm not an authority, so don't take anything I say to
And I think, isn't that one of those things that you just need to, you know, and you know, we have that's not something that, you know, you know, cousin Leroy over here, who dabbles in a little bit of everything, ain't the one to go to. You need to go talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Right.
And
And
it's like a
I do
lawyer.
know of I can't remember the name right now. There's a I call everybody a young lady that has a firm here in Maryland, and they do trust and wills. And so I went to one of their classes, and one thing they talked about was, because people are concerned about being sued and things like that. Well, they can't sue the trust, but they can sue the person that runs the trust. And so what you want to do is you want to, it's a good idea. Number one, it is a good idea. I don't have enough information on it to really advise you on it. But what I would do is seek out a knowledgeable person. and ask a bunch of questions. Don't stop asking questions until you're satisfied with an answer. If you don't get the answer that you want, go somewhere else and ask, and keep asking the question. You get the answers you want, because these things have been in place for years. I mean, people don't know that you can sell a life insurance policy. I mean, sell a life insurance policy. I'm not talking about cash it in. I'm talking about sell it. And I get these certain looks. It's like, yes, since like the early 1900s, you could sell a life insurance policy, but they tell us to cash them in, right? I got a $100,000 policy. I'm gonna get maybe 5,000, 10,000 cash out of it. But if I sell, I may get 90,000.
Interesting.
You don't have any money saved up. You don't have any retirement.
Right.
But there's another vehicle that you can utilize. So I got a bunch of ideas and things like that we can do, but we just got to ask the question. If you don't, it's not a problem not knowing.
Yeah. Just ask. But like you're saying, yeah, you can sell life insurance policies all the time. As you were saying, they can cash them in, but for a trust, there's, I think, 5 companies around the church. One of my business partners, we have a lawyer that's off of Eldon Street. I can't remember his name. He does trust and wills as well. So they're the best idea, honestly. You can set it up specific. You can write every single detail you want out of it, and the person has to follow step by step, or else there's nothing.
I got you. Now, you said interesting. How important is it to have a will, especially in a time like this where people are, I have a good friend of mine who was actually visiting D.C. Was feeling kind of bad, and this is when everything first started. Was feeling kind of bad for a couple of days here in D.C. Got back on the plane to Dallas and got off the plane, and they had to take him to the hospital. And 2 days later, he was gone. And so, how important is a will?
It's vital.
A will is very important.
Yeah.
If you own anything, you really need to have a will. Any asset that you have that is not beneficiaryable needs to be outlined in a will. If you don't have anything, like say you're a renter, you don't own a car, if you don't own anything, you don't necessarily need a will, but you do have retirement money, that money needs to at least have beneficiaries listed. A will is a very public thing. A trust is a great thing because a trust is private. If you die and you have a trust, then those assets are distributed and don't nobody know about it, except those folks that are beneficiaries of the trust. Whereas when you have a will, that will is public. The will goes through the probate process, which is a public process. If you have a will, for example, and you say that so-and-so's going to get X, that's public. It's public knowledge. So I think it's very important that you have a will, you do some kind of estate planning. When you're doing financial planning, that's one of the pieces of it, is the estate planning piece. So we think it's important to have a will.
Go ahead. You have something on that?
Yeah, I got so many stories. I'm never gonna have a lot of time. But I had the experience of actually doing a will for a client, and this is kind of wild. This was a couple of months ago. I was at my middle daughter's graduation. She graduated from Morgan. Have a client who was in the hospital. She had a stroke, and her daughter's trying to manage everything. Her daughter didn't know up from down, but she's been a client of mine for probably 20 years. And I'm sitting at my daughter's graduation, but I had my iPad with me. She said, they asked me to do all these things in terms of her medical, right? Make all these decisions. I said, we need to have a medical power of attorney on these things, right? I said, do you all have all of that? I'm asking these questions, but because I know they don't have it. And I said, wait a minute. My job is to help these people. Yeah, I sold a policy, yeah, that whatever. But my job is still my job for my father, right?
Yeah.
So this is pretty wild. At my daughter's graduation, I went online and looked up wills. And I found a website where you can actually do a will. At my daughter's graduation, I did her will, because I already had my client's information. I did her will while I was sitting there on my iPad, and I emailed it to, we did a dual power of attorney, for medical power of attorney. I emailed it to my client who was in the hospital. They got it notarized at the hospital, and everything was done. And I've only done one other client like that, but it's not something that I do. It's not a service that I provide. I know how to do it. Anybody that doesn't want to go through the lawyer, there's a simple process to get that done. But it's extremely important to get it done, and it doesn't take a long time. But you have to know what you want. It goes back to that picture. What do you want to happen? You know, on your deathbed, what do you want to happen?
Exactly.
When you're gone, what do you want to happen?
Yeah.
It all starts right there.
Yeah. And then you want people fighting at the funeral over a china cabinet and
Right.
foolishness like that.
And that's where the will and the trust
Yeah.
comes into play. So
Yeah.
you have the power to put all those instructions in place
Yeah.
and tell them what to do.
How do we get over the stigma? Because you kind of talked about death being that kind of, it has a taboo, and anytime, I'll never forget my first church I went to. I had a good friend who was a funeral home director, and he said, "Man, listen, I want to come and talk to your church about about policies, about making sure And so I went and talked to my board about it, about he wants to come by and just do free. He's going to even provide lunch. And it's like, no, we don't want to hear that. We don't. And half of them there definitely needed to hear it because so it has a stigma. How do we get over the stigma of, when we're talking about insurance and wills and all of that? How do we get over that stigma, especially in our communities?
I think, again, it goes back to exposure. Just let people know that it's available. I mean, young people now, they don't have problems asking questions. I mean, when I deal with my little 5-year-old, it's amazing. I think she's 30. She's a reincarnation of my father or something. Because people know to do the right thing, but they're just not willing to do it for whatever reason that is. And it goes back to whatever issues they're dealing with. But we just have to expose. I mean, things like this are what's important. Because there are people online, they're looking, they're listening, they're asking questions, and things are coming into their mind, right? It's going to generate more questions. So you got to keep asking questions until you get your answers. And so the main thing is you're going to die. I mean, you're going to die. Now, how you die, we may not know that, right? But you're going to die. When that occurs, what happens? When you're no longer in the picture, what happens? You have kids, okay, what happens to the kids? Okay, you have no money. You have little kids, what happens? Right? If there's 5 of them, they're not going to be together. Is a relative going to come in and take care of them? They're going to need some money. Right? Or they're going to go in the system, and you don't know who's going to get them. And my thing is if I go today or tomorrow, I mean, of course everybody's going to be good, but not that I'm gone, but in terms of money, right? But I don't want just anybody taking care of my daughter.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's a very important thing to think about. I voted policy on a single parent yesterday. And the question I asked her, she's got like 5 brothers. She's the youngest, but she's the most responsible. Okay, both her parents are deceased. I said, what happens to your daughter when you die? Who takes care of her? Because we're doing the beneficiary and all that. Who takes care of your daughter? That's a very interesting question. Because someone's got to watch her, raise her up from 8 years old until she's an adult. Now, who's that responsible person? Who's going to do that? These are very serious questions. And we don't ask those questions. So I would say just more events like this one, probably more often, and exposure. Just keep asking questions till you get an answer.
Somebody asked, what do you think about, I know that's one thing I've been trying to do is diversify during this time. Somebody said, well, what do you think about bonds?
They okay.
They're not. You got it.
I don't have much experience with bonds, but diversification is important. I can't remember who said this, but it was some famous gentleman, some multi whatever, and he talked about putting all your eggs in one basket, but watch that basket very carefully.
Buffett.
All right. Now I I can tell you right now, I'm risk averse, but I am in the stock market, right? And I have a ton of shares in a telemedicine company that we just took public. It's actually a company that we had one of our companies owned. And so, had a situation, we were talking about emotion, where the stock went way, well, it didn't go way up in terms of dollar amount, but the number of shares that I had, it put me way over the top. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to retire. But when you do your due diligence, that's asking your questions, and look at the fundamentals, I said, okay, it hit this number right here, but this is not the number that this stock's going to go to. So it went back down. So I was there July of last year. I probably wouldn't have been here. I probably wouldn't be here. I'm just being honest, because that's how we are. If you never had anything, all of a sudden you get it, you become this other person. Right?
Yeah.
So what you want to do is try to keep that picture in your mind of what you want to happen, right? If you don't know, ask a question. Diversify. What's going to happen when you diversify? Okay, I'm looking into crypto. I'm looking into gold. I'm looking into cash. Okay, if this country goes to hell in a handbasket, right? What is my fallback? What are my resources? My friend here talked about a stash off to the side, right? Right?
Yeah.
You have to diversify, but you cannot not invest. You cannot not save. You have to do, and you cannot not tithe. It doesn't matter. Diversify, but do your due diligence.
That's the important thing.
It's-
Whatever you do, whether it's the stock market, whether it's bonds, do your due diligence.
Yeah.
You got to, that I think that's important. Don't, as you said, and I think that's what happened. So many just kind of put everything in one thing, for instance, people who had everything in their retirement. And, that retirement was connected to the stock market or something like that. And then, it went down a couple of years ago and people literally lost almost, everything they had. And, I think it's important to make sure that you just do, as you said, do your due diligence. Yeah. As we prepare to kind of wrap up tonight, I just kind of want to lead us into, and let me say on behalf of the church, let me thank each of you for being here tonight. But in talking about finances in the midst of a pandemic, say you're somebody who the truth is before, I think really March, you had not really prepared. You've stumbled through to now, and now you're here and you want to do something, and they're saying that it's a possibility that a second wave could come in like October, November, and we could have to shut down again. What can somebody do between, now to begin to prepare themselves for what may come, in the fall for another wave? What can we do? I'll start with you, Josh.
Currently, I'd say start minimizing your expenses. If you're going out to eat every single day or at least 3 times a week, stop doing it. Let's go back to eating at home, eating bag lunches, eating sandwiches. It allows you to have a lot more freedom with your finances. The less you spend on amenities and food, you'll be able to do a lot more just in case there's an emergency. That's what you can really do right now. I mean, start cutting back on your expenses, because that's the only thing that's kind of holding people back.
Okay. And so you said cut back on your expenses and, start trying to do what he talked about, the 70, 10, 10, 10, or what she talked about, having that 3 months set aside. Start taking some of that money that you spend that you really don't need to spend. You having boxes from Amazon shipped to your house every day for stuff you don't need. And you can start putting that money away and start saving. Okay, I like that. Brother Hunter.
I would just piggyback on my friend here. just cut your expenses. That's the first thing. I mean, I realize that even though this didn't really hit me that bad, I mean, I'm working from home, but I've been working from home, right? So I mean, I have awesome, but I've been working. This is nothing new for me. But take the time to make a plan. He said it. Just make a plan. I mean, where do you see yourself? Okay, it's going to hit September. Let's just say it's going to hit in September. Okay, where you want your finance to be in September? Okay, you want to have extra money, or you want to have no money? You want to be still struggling like you are right now? Then you got to plan for it. You got to assume that it's going to happen. Always prepare for the worst, right? And if the worst doesn't happen, keep preparing for the worst. You got to save. If you survive this pandemic and you don't save any money, you're going to wish you had died. Because it's worse. It's very simple. Cut your expenses. If you can, try to increase your income. Try to find an opportunity. Try to find somewhere to make some additional money. And don't spend that money. And like I said, get you a home-based business, because that's going to allow you to cut your taxes. You save a lot more money when you're cutting your taxes. I mean, something simple. I mean, I mentioned Pay Yourself First. That's actual company. And it's an actual business. So I can show a person how to lower their cost of living, lower their taxable income, and take that money and put it away legally. Right? Cut your expenses and increase your income.
Okay.
I would say take advantage of, we know it's going to happen. We just don't know when the shoe is going to drop. So if you're still working from home or what have you, take advantage of some of those offers, for example, to not pay the card note or to not pay a credit card, so that you can put some money away into savings. As long as it's not anything ridiculous. But, if they're offering you, every time I go online to pay a card payment, to pay the card note, there's an offer out there. If you're having trouble due to COVID, call us or whatever. So take advantage of that so that you can put some money away in savings. And again, I would underscore watching your budget. Write down everything that you're spending so that you can cut out those things that are negotiable.
Okay. Thank you all so much. Now we have one last question. Is how important is it to have long-term disability insurance?
Very important.
And what age, and what is a good age to purchase it?
As
Okay.
early as you can.
As early as you can.
As early as you can. When you think about it, if I were to ask you today what your greatest asset is, most of you are going to say something like your house or your car, and that is not true. Your greatest asset is your ability to make money. If you make $100,000 and you're going to live for another, or you're going to work rather for another 30 years, that's a lot of money. If you become long-term disabled and you don't have any long-term disability insurance, then all of those things that were in your plan is going to be derailed. Most jobs have long-term disability, but it's only 60% of your income. And that's a company-paid benefit, so then you got to pay taxes on it, so you only going to see like 40% of your income. You need to have long-term disability right now. If you got income, you need to have it right now. Because if you become disabled, you still got to go on and do what you got to do to live.
Okay. Uh-huh.
I agree. They're both correct, because you don't know when you're going to become disabled. And the expense of long-term care, I mean, not the expense of the policy itself, but just what has to be done. It's expensive. And you can't take that gamble and assume that nothing's going to happen to you. We've all been there. We've been young. We've all been there where, you probably still there. No. where you think you're invincible. It's not true. So put these things in place now. I mean, if the income is not there, start small. And maintain that one thing and keep it going. One of my mentors, a gentleman by the name of Joe Dudley, he started saving money in the bank. And he would save 5 cents. And they laughed at him. And what he told me was that it's not the amount that you're saving. It's the principle. It's that discipline. He owns the bank now. So you can start very, very small as long as you have the discipline to keep it going. You got compound interest. Look that up and just understand what compound interest is in a little simple account. And look how that money multiplies.
Amen. Well, listen, let me once again thank each of you for sharing with us on tonight. As I said, Brother Anthony Hunter is the CEO of PYF Global. He has years of experience, so you can look him up through his website. Sister Maria Kersey is a financial advisor with Northwest Mutual. Brother Joshua Best is a financial planner with New York Life. We thank each of them for coming out and sharing with us on tonight. This is the first of a entire month-long series. Every Wednesday night in July, we'll be here talking about different facts of life in the month of July, but different facts of life as far as it relates to the pandemic. And so we thank each of you for being on with us on tonight. Our prayer is that something has been said or done that has blessed your spirit in a mighty way. And I close with that scripture that we're very familiar with in Proverbs. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart. Lean not to thine own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Remember, you don't know it all. Ask somebody, talk to somebody, and they'll lead you where you need to go. God bless you and God keep you. See you on next Wednesday night.